أهانا كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما وتحبون المال حبا جما كلا إذا دكت الأرض دكا دكا وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات على محمد.
معصوم سے منقول ہے کہ ہمارے جد کی آخری رخصت پڑھو اور ان کی مصیبتوں کو بیان کرو. میرانی سے کلام سے کہ آج شبیر پہ کیا عالم تنہائی ہے، آج شبیر پہ کیا عالم تنہائی ہے، ظلم کی چاند پہ زہرا کی گھٹا چھائی ہے. اس طرف لشکر آدم میں سفارائی ہے، یا نہ بیٹا نہ بھتیجا نہ کوئی بھائی ہے. برچیاں کھاتے چلے جاتے ہیں تلواروں میں، مار لو پیاسے کو ہے شور ستمگاروں میں. زخمی بازو ہے کمر خم ہے بدن میں نہیں تاب، ڈگمگاتے ہیں نکل جاتی ہے قدموں سے رکاب. پیاس کا غلبہ ہے لب خشک ہیں آنکھیں پر آب، تیغ سے دیتے ہیں ہر وار کا آدھا کو جواب. شدت ذوف میں جس جا پہ ٹھہر جاتے ہیں، سینکڑوں تیر ستم تن سے گزر جاتے ہیں. اور جب آخری رخصت کو حسین آئے حرم سے، سب بیبیاں لپٹی شہ والا کے قدم سے. حضرت نے کہا قطع محبت کرو ہم سے، جینے کے نہیں ہم علی اکبر کے علم سے. بابا سے نہ جب تک یہ وہ گل اندام ملے گا، تب تک نہ ہمیں ایک دم آرام ملے گا. سب مر چکے اب کس کے لیے سر نہ کٹائیں، ایسے نہیں بچھڑے کہ جو اکبر چلے آئیں. کس طرح سے اس یوسف گم گشتہ کو پائیں، ہے فرق بصارت میں کدھر ڈھونڈنے جائیں. بے ان کے نہ کھانے کے نہ پینے کا مزہ ہے، فرزند سلامت ہو تو جینے کا مزہ ہے. اور ایک جانے خزی تابہ کجا رنج اٹھائے، راحت اب اسی میں ہے کہ جلدی اجل آئے. زخم جگر و دل کسے شبیر دکھائے، اللہ تباہی یا کسی گھر پہ نہ لائے. تاراج نہ اس طرح سے ہو باغ کسی کا، اب مجھ کو دکھا دے نہ خدا داغ کسی کا. आगे मेरे मारे गए दो भांजे प्यारे, कासिम बने दुनिया से पुरमान सिधारे। अब्बास का गम पूछे कोई दिल से हमारे, अकबर के तो मरने से हुए गोर किनारे। अब्बास न भाई न भतीजा न पिसर है, सो दाग और एक दिल ये हमारा ही जिगर है। मैं कहता था कट जाएगा जब तन से मेरा सर, सब रोएंगे और गुस्ल कफन देवेंगे आकर, बाबा का उठाएंगे जनाजा अली अकबर। सो मर गए वो जिंदा है फर्जंदे पैगंबर, रूहे अली अकबर से हमें शर्म बड़ी है, मैदान में बेगोरो कफन लाश पड़ी है, मैदान में गोरो कफन लाश पड़ी है। जिस तरह से रो पीट चुके उनके अलम में, हमको भी उसी तरह से रोना कोई दम में। अब जाते हैं घिर जाने को हम फौजे सितम में, फिर आने का यह हौसला बाकी नहीं हम में। जब जाते थे सब घेर के ले आते थे हमको, वो मर गए जो फेर के ले आते थे हमको, वो मर गए जो फेर के ले आते थे हमको। अल्लाह को सौंपा तुम्हें ज़ैनब कुलसूम, लग जाओ गले तुमसे बिछड़ता है ये मजलूम। अब जाते ही खंजर से कटेगा मेरा हलकूम, है सब्र का अम्मा का तरीका तुम्हें मालूम। मजबूर है नाचार है मर्जी खुदा से, भाई नहीं जी उठने का फरियाद बुका से। कहकर ये सुखन शाह के आंसू हुए जारी, छाती से लिपट भाई के ज़ैनब की पुकारी, ऐ सैयद मजलूम बहन हो गई वारी, मैं जाने नहीं देने की हजरत को सवारी। तब जाइयो जब जी से गुजर जाएगी ज़ैनब, हजरत ने कमर बांधी तो मर जाएगी ज़ैनब। दुखियारी हूं भैया न मेरी आस को तोड़ो, सदके गई परदेश में भैया को ना छोड़ो। बरगुज़श्ता जमाना हुआ मुंह तुमको तो ना मोड़ो, मुझसे तो ना फरमाओ के हाथों को ना जोड़ो। मिन्नत भी करूंगी मैं कदम पर पे गिरूंगी, सरनंगे मगर कैद में दर दर ना फिरूंगी, सरनंगे मगर कैद में दर दर ना फिरूंगी। इन बातों से ज़ैनब के दिल शाह भराया, रो रो के गले ख्वाहिर बेकस को लगाया, और पहुंच के आंसू ये मोहब्बत से सुनाया, तुमने भी तो है सब्र बहन विरसे में पाया। हम हल्क पे लें तेगे सितम दश्ते बला में, तुम रंज असीरी का सहो रहा खुदा में। ये सुन के बहुत रोए शह साबिर और शाकिर, फरमाया कि लो बानो खुदा हाफिज व नासिर, है आदमी फिरदौस मदीने का मुसाफिर, सब जुल्म उठा लीजिएगा गर है मेरी खातिर। जिस दम नजर आए मेरा जिस दम नजर आए मेरा सर नो के सिना पर, लाना ना कोई हर्फ शिकायत का ज़बां पर, लाना ना। ये कहकर ये सुखन शाह खैमे के बाहर, ये कहकर ये सुखन शाह चले खैमे के बाहर, रांडों में बपा हो गया हंगामा मैशर। चिल्ला की कोई कहती थी है मेरे सरवर, कहती थी कोई अब नहीं आएंगे बरादर। बाबा को कसम दे के बुलाती है सकीना, बाबा को कसम दे के बुलाती है सकीना, सर पीटती पीछे चली जाती है सकीना, सर पीटती पीछे चली जाती है सकीना। और नींद आएगी जब आपकी बू पाऊंगी बाबा, नींद आएगी जब आपकी बू पाऊंगी बाबा, मैं रात को मख्तल में चली आऊंगी बाबा। फरमाया निकलती नहीं सैदानिया बाहर, छाती पे सुलाएगी तुम्हें रात को मादर। वो कहती थी सोएंगे कहाँ फिर अली असगर, फरमाते थे बजिद न करो सदके में तुम पर, शब होएगी और दश्त में हम होएंगे बीबी, असगर मेरे साथ आज वही सोएंगे बीबी, असगर मेरे साथ आज वही सोएंगे बीबी। वो कहती थी बस देख लिया आपका भी प्यार, मैं आपसे न बोलूंगी ना आप शाह अबरार, छना अगर कीजिएगा जलाने का इकरार, मर जाएगी इस शब को तड़प कर ये दिल अफगार। कैसी हैं ये बातें मेरा दिल रोता है बाबा, घर छोड़ के जंगल में कोई सोता है बाबा। कैसी हैं ये बातें मेरा दिल रोता है बाबा, घर छोड़ के जंगल में कोई सोता है बाबा। असगर कभी साथ आपके अब तक नहीं सोए, बहला लिया अम्मा ने अगर चौंक के रोए। शफकत थी मुझी पर कि ये बेचैन ना होए, ये प्यार हो जिस पर उसे हाथ से खोए। जीते रहे फर्जंद के सब लख्ते जिगर हैं, मैं आपकी बेटी हूं अम्मा के पिसर हैं। जीते रहे फर्जंद के सब लख्ते जिगर हैं, मैं आपकी बेटी हूं अम्मा के पिसर हैं। लो रोना अब सब्र करो बाप को जानी, कुछ देती हूँ अब्बास को पैगाम जबानी। ऊदे हैं लबे लाब, ऊदे हैं लबे लाल, ये है तिश्ना दहानी, मिलता है तो बीबी के लिए लाते हैं पानी, मिलता है तो बीबी के लिए लाते हैं पानी। महबूबे इलाही के नवासे हैं सकीना, हम भी तो कई रोज से प्यासे हैं सकीना। महबूबे इलाही के नवासे हैं सकीना, हम भी तो कई रोज से प्यासे हैं सकीना। और जंगल से आई फातिमा जहरा की ये सदा, امت نے مجھ کو لوٹ لیا یا محمدہ، اے عرض کربلا میرا بچہ ہے بے گناہ، اے عرض کربلا میرا بچہ ہے بے گناہ، اے دشت نینوا میرا بچہ ہے بے گناہ، اے نہر القما میرا بچہ ہے بے گناہ، اے نہر بے وفا میرا بچہ ہے بے گناہ، گھیرا ہے ظالموں نے میرے نور عین کو، اے ذوالفقار تجھ سے میں لوں گی حسین پر محمد آل محمد صلوات۔
ایک صاحب مومن کا ایئر فون گر گیا ہے. Somebody lost his earphone. Sorry, hearing aid, not earphone, hearing aid. So if anybody finds it, please bring it to us. We also found $100 at Eid time, and nobody has come forward to claim for it. So if somebody lost $100 at Eid, let me know. We have the money, otherwise we're just going to put it in general funds. Salawat. Oh, we also found a ring. So if anybody is missing a ring, let us know. Give the identity and we'll give it to them. Salawat.
درود پڑھ دیے گا محمد والے محمد پر۔ غریب زہرا کی غربت سنو اے اہل عزا، اکیلا رہ گیا مقتل میں جب میرا مولا، سپاہ شام نے چاروں طرف سے گھیر لیا، لبے فرات تھا ہر ایک خون کا پیاسا، تھا غل چراغ امامت ابھی بجھانا ہے، ارے زمین پہ زی سے شبیر کو گرانا ہے، یہ سن کے سنگ کسی نے جبی پر مارا، کسی نے پہلو میں برچھی کا پھل اتار دیا، ارے کسی نے سامنے آ کر چلائی تیغ جفا، غریب زہرا کزیں پر سنبھلنا مشکل تھا، علی و زہرا کو رن میں رلایا جاتا تھا، ارے حسین گرتے نہیں تھے گرایا جاتا تھا، ارے حسین گرتے نہیں تھے گرایا جاتا تھا، لگا جو تیر تو اصغر کو شہ نے یاد کیا، پکارا غازی کو جس وقت سر پہ گرز لگا، لگی جو برچھی تو اکبر کو شہ نے یاد کیا، تماچا خولی نے مارا تو بولے یا زہرا، علی کو یاد کیا سر پہ ضرب چلتے ہوئے، حسین کو یاد کیا منہ سے خون اگلتے ہوئے، حسن کو یاد کیا منہ سے خون اگلتے ہوئے، زمیں پہ زیں سے حضرت جو منہ کے بل آئے، جو تیر سینے میں تھے پشت سے نکل آئے، نکل کے پہلو سے سب برچھیوں کے پھل آئے، قرار کس طرح اب شہ کو ایک پل آئے، رکابیں پیروں سے ابن علی کی چھوٹ گئی، تمام پسلیاں سبتے نبی کی ٹوٹ گئی، تمام پسلیاں سبتے نبی کی ٹوٹ گئیں، چلی جو ضرب فرشتوں نے منہ کو پھیر لیا، فرشتے کیا تھے نبیوں نے منہ کو پھیر لیا، ارے ہٹے نبی تو رسولوں نے منہ کو پھیر لیا، چلے رسول تو ولیوں نے منہ کو پھیر لیا، حسن رسول علی بولے اب خدا جانے، حسین جانے گلا جانے فاطمہ جانے، حسین جانے گلا جانے فاطمہ جانے۔ اب اس کے آگے تکلم بیاں کیا ہوگا، لگی جو ضربیں نہ نکلا لہو کا ایک قطرہ، لعین غیظ میں آ کر صدا یہ دینے لگا، حسین جلدی بتا معجزہ یہ ہے کیسا، کہا غریب نے تو پیار ماں کا کیا جانے، گلے پہ میرے گلا رکھ دیا ہے زہرا نے، گلے پہ میرے گلا رکھ دیا ہے زہرا نے۔ آواز بلند صلوات۔
بار دیگر صلوات۔ ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، واہ حسینہ کا ہوا شور حرم میں برپا، ہو کے رخصت جو چلے گھر سے شہ کرب و بلا، کہہ کے یہ دوڑی سکینہ کے ٹہر جاؤ ذرا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، شہن بچی کا جو یہ حال پریشان دیکھا، رو کے فرمایا کہ کیا حال میری ماں نے لگا، جوڑ کر ننھے سے ہاتھوں کو سکینہ نے کہا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، سوچتی ہوں کہ تماچے کوئی مارے نہ میرے، گوشوارے کوئی کانوں سے اتارے نہ میرے، وہم آتے ہیں میرے دل میں نہ جانے کیا کیا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، اب نہ پیاسی ہوں نہ پانی کی ضرورت ہے مجھے، کوئی حاجت نہیں بس اتنی سی حسرت ہے مجھے، دیکھ لوں آج میں جی بھر کے تمہارا چہرہ، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، میں سمجھتی ہوں کہ مجھے بہلاتے ہو، تھا نہ معلوم کہ مرنے کے لیے جاتے ہو، تم ہمیشہ کے لیے ہوتے ہو اب مجھ سے جدا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، بابا سینے سے سکینہ کو لگاتے جائیں، اب کہاں ہوگی ملاقات بتاتے جائیں، تم کو اکبر کی قسم اونچا دہن کا صدقہ، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، کیا خبر تم سے کوئی بات بھی اب ہو کہ نہ ہو، کون جانے کہ ملاقات بھی اب ہو کہ نہ ہو، دل دھڑکتا ہے میرا بہر نبی بہر خدا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، تم نہ ہوگے تو اے بابا بہت روں گی، کس کے سینے پہ بتا دیجیے پھر سوں گی، نہ تو بھیا علی اکبر ہے نہ پاس چچا، ایک بار اور مجھے گود میں لے لو بابا، ضبط کتاب نہ مولا کو رہی ہے اندر، ہاتھ پھیلا کے بڑھے بیٹی کی جانب سرور، جس گھڑی بے قصو معصوم نے رو رو کے کہا، ایک بار مجھے گود میں لو بابا. صلوات. درود بھیجے محمد والے محمد. دارے دیگر نعرے صلوات. جب گرے گھوڑے سے مقتل میں شہ کرب و بلا، جب گرے گھوڑے سے مقتل میں شہ کرب و بلا، خنجر ظلم لیے شمر ستمگار بڑھا، دی تڑپ کر در خیمے سے یہ زینب نے صدا، ابھی خنجر نہ چلا، ابھی خنجر نہ چلا، ظالم ابھی خنجر نہ چلا. 3 دن ہو گئے پیاسا ہے نبی کا جانی، 3 دن ہو گئے پیاسا ہے نبی کا جانی، ذبح کرنا ہے تو 2 گھونٹ پلا دے پانی، کند خنجر ہے میرے بھائی کا، ہے سوکھا ہے گلا، ابھی خنجر نہ چلا، ابھی خنجر نہ چلا، ظالم ابھی خنجر نہ چلا. بوسہ گائے نبوی ہے یہ گلا ہے ظالم، شہ رگ میں ہے یہ خنجر نہ چلا ہے ظالم. چومتے تھے اسی حلقوم کو محبوب خدا، ابھی خنجر نہ چلا، ابھی خنجر نہ چلا، ظالم ابھی خنجر نہ چلا. کیا کروں جاؤں کہاں کس کو پکاروں بھائی، کیا کروں جاؤں کہاں کس کو پکاروں بھائی، کیسے دیکھے گی تمہیں توڑتے دم آ جائی، یا الہی مجھے شبیر سے پہلے لے اٹھا، ابھی خنجر نہ چلا، ابھی خنجر نہ چلا، ظالم ابھی خنجر نہ چلا. صلوات.
پر محمد والے محمد صلوات. میں لے کے تو کچھ اور آیا تھا پڑھنے کے لیے، لیکن جب میں یہاں آ رہا تھا تو بار بار سبت جعفر صاحب کا یہ کلام میرے زبان پر آ رہا تھا، تو بس یہی حاضر کر دیتا. اے چاند کربلا کے تو نے تو دیکھے ہوں گے، اترے تھے اس زمین پر عرش بری کے تارے. اے چاند، اے چاند جلوہ گر ہے ہاشم کا چاند، یہاں پر خیرات روشنی کی لے لیجیو یہاں سے. اے چاند حر اور حبیب جیسے جاں باز اور رہبا مارے گئے یہیں پر انصار شاہدین کے. اے چاند مارے گئے یہیں پر بے دردیوں ستم سے، مسلم کے دونوں پیارے زینب کے دونوں بیٹے. اے چاند پامال ہو رہی تھی قاسم کی لاش رن میں، عباس اور سرور چنتے تھے ان کے ٹکڑے. اے چاند بازو کٹے یہیں پر عباس با وفا کے، اذن وغا نہ پایا پانی بھی لا نہ پائے. اے چاند اس سرزمین پہ گزرا سرور پہ یہ بھی صدمہ، سینے پہ کھائی برچھی ہم شکل مصطفیٰ نے. اے چاند پانی پلانے لائے ایک محل کو سرور کیا ذبح حرملا نے، تیرے ستم لگا کے. اے چاند گردن چھدی پسر کی، بازو چھدا پدر کا، دونوں تڑپ تڑپ کر پیاسے جہاں سے گزرے اے چاند اس بن میں اس بن میں ایک بچی بابا کو ڈھونڈتی تھی بکھرے ہوئے پڑے تھے جب سر بری دلاشے اے چاند پھر تو نے یہ بھی دیکھا وہ غم رسیدہ بچی سینے پر سو رہی تھی بے سر پدر سے لپٹے اے چاند بازو بندھے یہیں پر پہلے پہل حرم کے اس سرزمین سے نکلے سجاد سر جھکائے اے چاند شہزادہ جناحی مالک ہے کربلا کا کس کی مجال آئے جب تک نہ وہ بلائے اے چاند پہنچے ہیں کربلا میں جو لوگ سبت جعفر اے کاش پھر مقدر ان کو یہ دن دکھائے اے چاند صلوات
بارے دیگر صلوات ایک کلام کا حکم ہے لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ کی لازوال درسگاہ حسین ہے نہ جس کی کوئی نظیر ہے نہ جس کی کوئی مثال ہے وہ بے مثال شہنشاہ حسین ہے حسین روح کائنات ہے حسین فخر معجزات ہے خدا نے جس کو مرحبا ہے نفس مطمئن کہا وہ کربلا کا مصطفیٰ حسین ہے. حسین لا الہ کی زندگی حسین انبیاء کی بندگی. لا الہ سے پوچھ لو کہ ساری کائنات میں صرف بنا لا الہ حسین ہے. حرم میں حشر کا سما ہوا پھوپھی سے جب سکینہ نے کہا مجھے نہ نیند آتی ہے مجھے نہ نیند آتی ہے میں سوں کس کے سینے پر کہاں چلا گیا میرا حسین ہے. اے ہاشمی جوانو کیا ہوا کہاں چلے گئے ہو باوفا صدا یہ فاطمہ کی تھی کرن میں کوئی بھی نہیں اکیلا رہ گیا میرا حسین ہے. پڑے ہیں رن میں لاش جا بجا جلے خیام کچھ بھی نہ بچا حرم کے سر سے چھین لی یزیدیوں نے چادریں یوں کربلا میں لٹ گیا حسین ہے. تڑپ چکی شبیہ مصطفیٰ مگر حسین ہے ڈٹا ہوا پسر جواں کی لاش پہ ہے مطمئن کھڑا ہوا یہ وہ خلیل کربلا حسین ہے. لا الہ الا اللہ محمد رسول اللہ کھلا زوال درسگاہ حسین ہے. سلام.
برائے تاجیل ظہور منطقہ میں کربلا بصدائے بلند صلوات. اور امام حسین اپنے حرم کا دفاع کر رہے تھے، اور ان کے حرم کے جو حرم کا دفاع آج کر رہے ہیں لوگ، ان کی ایک دفعہ صحت و سلامتی کے لیے، اور جو گزر گئے شہید ہو گئے ان کی بلندی درجات کے لیے کہ درود پڑھ دیں محمد وآل محمد. ہائے مظلوم حسین میرا مظلوم حسین، ہائے مظلوم حسین. درود پڑھ دیں محمد والے محمد. محمد والے محمد صلی اللہ محمد.
There's a request for Surah Fatiha for these Muslimin. Some of them are members of a community who passed away. We should remember them. If they have this, so first of all, Maskirmani, Sayyid Mazahir Hussain, son of Sayyid Zahid Hussain. Imran Naqvi, son of Sayyid Hadi Naqvi, just passed away today. Sayyida Nuran Zainab Raza Hassan Rizvi, Bashir Chaudhry, Fazibul Hassan Rizvi, Dal Hassan Rizvi, Inayat Ali Khan, Amjad Ali, Hadi Jafri, Sakina Bani Jafri, and our beloved Ghulam Asnan, and also, who am I forgetting, please recite for all our Marhumeen.
قاسم جو گرے گھوڑے سے تھا موت کا پہرا، تھا خون میں ڈوبا ہوا وہ چاند سا چہرہ، چھلنی تھا بدن تیروں سے ہر زخم تھا گہرا، یوں خون بہا سر سے کہ تر ہو گیا صحرا، اور اس طرح لرزتا ہوا لاشا نہیں دیکھا، اس شان کا کوئی کبھی غنچہ نہیں دیکھا، ٹوٹا ہوا ہر بند جدا تھا، بازو ہے یہ وہ جس پہ کہ تعویذ بندھا تھا، کچلا ہوا سینہ تھا لہو سر سے بہا تھا، اس پھول سے بچے پہ عجب ظلم ہوا تھا، اور یہ وزن تھا ٹانپوں کا کہیں ٹوٹ گئی تھیں، سب پسلیاں سینے میں کہیں ٹوٹ گئی تھیں، میدان میں مدد کے لیے چلاتے تھے قاسم، جاتے تھے ادھر اور ادھر آتے تھے قاسم، اٹکا تھا ارے دم اٹکا تھا اور چین نہیں پاتے تھے قاسم، لگتی تھیں ٹانپیں تو تڑپ جاتے تھے قاسم، اور گھوڑوں سے کچل جانے کی زحمت نہ دکھائے اللہ، کسی کو یہ مصیبت نہ دکھائے، شہ خاک پہ بھائی کا پسر ڈھونڈ رہے ہیں، میدان میں لاشا ہے کہاں ڈھونڈ رہے ہیں، ارے آنکھوں میں اندھیرا ہے مگر ڈھونڈ رہے ہیں، پھر بھائی کا ہر لخت جگر ڈھونڈ رہے ہیں،
اور تبرا کے وہیں گرتے ہیں، غش آتا ہے شہ کو جب جسم کا ٹکڑا کوئی مل جاتا ہے شہ کو۔ شبیر نے جس کو کبھی گودی میں سلایا، ہاتھوں کو ہے چوما کبھی سینے سے لگایا، اور تقدیر نے یہ آج عجب وقت دکھایا، لاشا اسی بچے کا ہے چادر میں اٹھایا، اور تھامے ہوئے کونے حسن خستہ جگر ہے، آزا کی یہ گٹھڑی نہیں بیوہ کا پسر ہے۔ سہ لیتے ہیں کچھ درد بتائے نہیں جاتے، لاشیں کبھی حصوں میں اٹھائے نہیں جاتے، گر شاہ ردا اپنی بچھائے نہیں جاتے، ٹکڑے کبھی قاسم کے اٹھائے نہیں جاتے۔ ان چادر کو جو تھامے ہوئے عباس کھڑے ہیں، اکبر بھی سہارے کے لیے پاس کھڑے ہیں۔ دل اپنا سنبھالا کبھی چادر کو سنبھالا، خیمے کی طرف چلنے لگے سید والا، تاریک ہوا جاتا تھا آنکھوں کا اجالا، چادر میں بندھی لاش کو جب سامنے ڈالا، فروان نے یہ پوچھا کہ کہاں لال میرا ہے، دل ہلتا ہے بتلائیے اس گٹھڑی میں کیا ہے، اور گٹھڑی جو کھلی حشر بپا ہو گیا ہر سو، ٹکڑے تھا بدن لاش کا اور خون بھر گیسو، ارے ٹانپوں کے نشان سینے میں اور آنکھوں میں آنسو، کہنے لگا آہستہ سے زہرا کا وہ محروم، اور یہ دیکھیے جو ایک تنے صد پاش ہے بھابھی، پہچانیے قاسم کی یہی لاش ہے بھابھی۔ ماں گر گئی، ماں گر گئی یہ دیکھ کے تورا کے زمیں پر، محشر سے ہی پہلے تھا وہاں خیمے میں محشر، فروا کو سنبھالے رہی خود زینب مضطر، شبیر کی آنکھوں میں قمر پھر گیا منظر، اور لرزش تھی ہر ایک ٹکڑے میں، لرزش تھی ہر ایک ٹکڑے میں، کچھ لا ہوا تن تھا، شبر کا کلیجا تھا کہ قاسم کا بدن تھا، شبر کا کلیجا تھا کہ قاسم کا بدن تھا۔
محمد وعلى محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔ ابھی شب عاشور گزری، سبھی نے گریہ کیا، اسی کے سلسلے میں بس دو بند، اور محمد وعلى محمد صلی اللہ علیہ جب نادا سے کسی طرح صفائی ٹھہری جب نادا سے کسی طرح صفائی ٹھہری صبح عاشور محرم کو لڑائی ٹھہری پوچھا زینب نے کہ کیا ہے میرے بھائی ٹھہری پوچھا زینب نے کہ کیا ہے میرے بھائی ٹھہری شہ نے فرمایا بہن تم سے جدائی ٹھہری آج پیاروں سے ملاقات غنیمت جانو اے بہن آج کی یہ رات غنیمت جانو میں کے شر سے اما پاؤں غیر ممکن ہے وطن میں آل کو پہنچاؤں غیر ممکن ہے یہاں سے پاؤں بھی سرکاؤں غیر ممکن ہے میں کل کو قتل سے بچ جاؤں یہاں سے پاؤں بھی سرکاؤں غیر ممکن ہے میں کل کو قتل سے بچ جاؤں غیر ممکن ہے خدا سے صبر و رضا کا ہے خواستگار حسین بس ایک رات کا مہمان ہے بے دیار حسین جب نادا سے کسی طرح صفائی ٹھہری محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم
محمد وآل محمد صلوات
جب ظہور تک حسین 72 کو رو چکے جب ظہور تک حسین 72 کو رو چکے ایک دو پہر میں چھوٹے سے لشکر کو رو چکے قاسم کو رو چکے علی اکبر کو رو چکے قاسم کو رو چکے علی اکبر کو رو چکے تربت بنا کے ننھی سی اصغر کو رو چکے سیدانیوں نے رو کے کہا شور و شین سے سیدانیوں نے رو کے کہا شور و شین سے لو اب زمانہ ہوتا ہے خالی حسین سے جب ظہور تک حسین.
فاتحہ. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. جس دم نگین خاتم پیغام برا گرا جس دم نگین خاتم پیغام برا گرا رونق اٹھی زمین سے امام گرنے پہ سب گرو لیے برشیاں گرا ہے نہ ان جفاؤں پہ بھی آسمان گرا पूछिए ये कलक नूर ऐन का तपना ज़मीं का और तड़पना हुसैन का तपना ज़मीं का और तड़पना हुसैन का। सब थम गए मगर न थमाशे सर पीटने की जाह रखा उस जगह सीना दबा तो और भी तड़पे शोरो फुगा सुना उसी हालत में दो कातिल से पूछा दे किधर ये होता है हाय हाय हुसैन कह के कोई रोता है हाय हुसैन कह के कोई रोता। बोला कोई होगा मैं देखो भला किधर अब तेग पर निगाह शहरा में है नजर जब सवार होने लगा था मैं सीने पर सहदानी एक निकली थी खैमे से नंग इस दम हमारी फौज में तो ईद होती है मुझको यकीन है ये भी रोती है मुझको यकीन है यही भी शह बोले और कोई नहीं ये आशिक बहन हुसैन की तशना भूली हमारे प्यार में माँ का चलन बलवा कहाँ कहाँ ये मेरे दिल पुकारा आगे भी बाहर ये आई थी शहबों ने जब से नाली अकबर बोले जब से नाली अकबर लिखाई वो रोना बेकसी का वो घबरा नया थराना दिल का वो उड़ना हवा कहना बिलक बिलक के ये कलमा तेरा है शिमुर वास्ता अली असगर की प्यास अल्लाह तीनों रोज के प्यासे को छोड़ दे सदका नबी का उनके नवासे को छोड़ दे सदका नबी का उनके नवासे को छोड़ समझा खुदा को मान हबीबे खुदा ज़हरा को मान हजरत मुश्किल कुशा को कुंद फक्र फाक़े आले अपनी रसूल ज़ादी की तोड़े सारे बुजुर्ग मर गए मुझ बाद नसीब के मेरा कोई नहीं है सिवाय गरीब के मेरा कोई नहीं है सिवाय गरीब ऐ शुम्र पास भाई के आओ जो तू ज़ख्मों से जलती रे छुड़ाओ जो तू चादर बदन के नीचे बिछाओ जो तू बेकल है सर में आके उठाओ जो तू पानी तो यहाँ मिलेगा ना ज़हरा की जाय को आंसू छिड़क के होश में लाओ ये भाई को आंसू छिड़क के होश में लाओ भाई को ऐ शिमर में गले से लगा लो तुझे भगाई से मिलके खेमे में जाओ तुझे कुछ दर्द अपने दिल का सुना लो तुझे सैयद को क़िबला रूम में लिटा लो तुझे पानी तो भूखे प्यासे को अहबात खिसाल दे है वक्त ज़िब्हारों पे कपड़ा है वक्त ज़िब्हारों पे कपड़ा तो डाल है शिम्र तुझको खालिक अकबर का वास्ता है शिम्र तुझको रूह पैगंबर का वास्ता है शिम्र तुझको हैदर सफदर का वास्ता है शिम्र तुझको नन्न से असगर का वास्ता बिल्लाह कर नज़िबहा शाह माशरक़ैन को मैं भी मांगती हूँ मुझे दे हुसैन को मैं भीख मांगती हूँ मुझे दे हुसैन ये कहते कहते सुस्त हुई उलट गया ये रह गई सरशे का लाश पर गिरी के जिगर सा फर गया आहे गले में डाल के लाशा बहन, ये भाई भाई कहती थी लाशा। बहन बहन, ये भाई भाई कहती थी लाशा। बहन बहन, जिस दम नगी ने खातम पैगंबर गया।
With this, I'm going to invite Sayyid Ali Muswi to the member to recite the Masayib in English. Can you have Sayyid Ali Muswi? Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Just a reminder about today's program. So after Matam, we'll have Fakir Shikni, and then we will have Maghrib Namaz at 9 o'clock, 9:05. 9:05, and after that we'll have Shame Ghariba, like every year. Maula's Soyam Majlis would be on Wednesday. I will send the details. The Soyam Majlis for the Marhum, who we had funeral today, would be on Thursday. And then from Thursday, we're having Zaim Raza coming, Maulana Zaim Raza, and he'll be reciting Majlis from Thursday through Sunday. On Sunday, we have Majlis at Brother Hadi Uncle's place at 1 o'clock. Hadi Jafri, Hadi Mirza, so sorry. Hadi Mirza's residence at 1 o'clock. So I will be sending all the details in the emails. So just a quick reminder. Big salawat for Sheikh Sayyid Ali. So I'm going to ask you.
Face and mention a few points, and then from that time I'll just face forward.
For the oppressed people of the world, especially the ones in the US, Palestine, Yemen, Afghanistan, please recite of Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
الله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Inshallah, I was going to begin first by mentioning just a few general recommendations for this day. And then inshallah, we'll move into the recitation of the maqtal, the tragedy of what happened to Imam Hussein on this day. Beginning with the recommendations, one of the first recommendations that has been given to us is that on the day of Ashura, we should be focused on the tragedy of what has happened. And specifically, we should be careful to leave aside any worldly pursuit, any issue of working, any issue of that which pleases us from dunya. And we should try to focus primarily on this tragedy, on what has happened. Alongside that, we should be focusing on ourselves as well, because the essence of Karbala is a story of change. It's a story of transformation. That when we look at the tragedy of Imam Hussein, really what it's asking us is the question that, are you ready for your Imam? Are you ready for your Imam? That if your Imam was to come, have you been busy? Have you been working on yourself? This is really the story of each and every one of the Ahlul Bayt, that when they would call upon the people, very few would answer the call. And the vast majority were busy with the daily pursuits and the life pursuits and this and that. And so they were not able to answer that call of the Imam. One day we have to keep in mind that our Imam is going to come. He is going to make the call. And then whether we answer that call on that day, it's going to depend on whether we have been working on ourselves or not. My brothers and sisters, one of the foundations of our faith are the acts of ibadah. When we look at the salah, when you look at Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura, one of the things that he does is when the time of prayer comes, immediately he goes after the salah. In that situation, surrounded by the enemy with all of these worries, all of these concerns about what is going to happen to his family, that salah was the foundation of his iman in God. If we can begin with that salah, we're going to see that many things are going to change in our lives. You know, one of the things that the ulama would always suggest is that no matter what, when the time of prayer comes, go for the prayer, begin the prayer. In essence, when we do that, what we are saying to Allah is that, Ya Allah, with all of these things that are happening around us, what matters the most to me is my relationship with you. And when Allah sees that, what He's going to do is that He's going to make all of these things that we are worried about, concerned about, He's going to make it smooth for us. We've experienced this so many times that we had, for example, all of these things to do. We say, no, let me pray. And those things that would have taken hours, days, weeks, they happen instantly for us. And the opposite as well. We say, let me go after this dunya. I'll pray after 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 2 hours, 3 hours, at the end of the day. And we see that that which we went after, it eludes us. And it takes much longer than it should. So the salah is really the foundation when we look at these acts of ibadah. And then from there, we inshallah grow and we move on. In addition to this, masjid attendance, my brothers and sisters, very important. I know that we're all busy. We have things that we need to do, but one of the things which revives the heart, even after the month of Moharrum and the month of Safar is finished, is that attendance in these spiritual gatherings, that inshallah it can keep that fire, that love of Imam Hussein going even after this month. And these months have finished. Inshallah, Allah will give us this tawfiq. Another of the suggestions which has been given for a day like this is that you should not fast, but reduce your intake of food. Usually they say that after Dhuhr or Asr, you should eat a little bit, but it's good to be light on a day like this. It's good to be a little bit thirsty on a day like this. It'll help us to connect to that state that the Imam was in on the day of Ashura. The fourth point that has been mentioned is that we should give condolences to one another. And one of the famous condolences which the Ahlul Bayt have mentioned is the أَعْظَمَ اللَّهُ أُجُورَنَا بِمُصَابِنَا بِالْحُسَيْنِ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ, that we are condoling one another. We are essentially bringing this tragedy to life, even though 1300, 1400 years have passed. Another recommendation that has been given is the reciting of Surah Ikhlas, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, as well as the recitation of salawat as many times as possible. You might ask the question of why? Why قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ? The reason it is that it is the foundation of Tawheed. You are establishing the monotheism, the belief in Allah. And in reality, Imam Hussein, the struggle, the fight against the oppressors, it was to establish Tawheed. And so inshallah, by reciting Surah Ikhlas, we can begin to really understand this foundation, this understanding that we have of Tawheed, and we can raise our rank, inshallah. And of course, the salawat, it doesn't require any explanation, that it is praise upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Another point is that on a day like this, even though we are commemorating what happened 1400 years ago to Imam Hussein by the Yazid of that time, it is important to remember that the Yazid is a archetype. It is something which exists in all times and in all places. Today, there are the Yazids which are alive now. They are oppressing the people around the world now. And so to remember Imam Hussein without understanding that connection with the Yazids of today, it creates a disconnection. It becomes an empty type of remembrance. That remembrance of the Imam should lead us to action. It should lead us to stand against the Yazids of today. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us this tawfiq of actualizing the revolution, the movement of Imam Hussein today. And inshallah, it will lead to the coming of our Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. What is also important to understand within the contexts of the Yazids of our time is that one of the main tools that they will use, and they used in the past, is the tool of propaganda. When we look at the time of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we find that many of the people, they were confused because of this propaganda. You know, when Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib was made shaheed, please recite his salawat. Some of the people, they were confused. They said, how did Ali die during sujood? We didn't even think that he prayed. This was the level of the propaganda. Today, the propaganda continues, whether it's against the Shias, whether it's against the Muslims, whether it's to create division between the Muslims, whatever it is. There are many enemies that they spend billions upon billions of dollars on this purpose alone. And so we have to be aware of this. And we also have to be careful to work against it, to untie those knots of propaganda that the enemy is tying. Inshallah, Allah will give us this tawfiq as well. Last but not least, my brothers and sisters, is the lesson from Imam Hussein that within every single human being, there is a potential of a Yazid and there is a potential of a companion of Imam Hussein. Within each and every one of us, we have this potential of becoming the greatest of the enemies and the greatest of the lovers of the Imam. What determines what we become are the individual choices that I make on a daily basis. The choice between halal and haram. The choice between goodness and evil. The choice between helping the people or hurting the people. The choice between speaking ill or staying silent, speaking good towards the people. These little things that we do, and oftentimes, maybe I don't realize what I'm doing. I don't realize the enormity of it. We see that over time it builds and eventually it leads to someone becoming like Umar ibn Sa'd, to someone becoming like Shimr. You know, there was a time period when Shimr considered himself one of the ones that was close to the Ahlul Bayt. He went from one of those people all the way to the individual that is the most violent, the most brutal against Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura. We have to know this, that I have this potential within me, and I am going to make the choices in the coming days, in the coming weeks, in this life that Allah has given to me, of which direction that I want to take. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the tawfiq of following the Husseini path, inshallah. I wanted to mention a few ahadith, and then inshallah we'll move into the recitation of the maqtal. The first hadith, my brothers and sisters, is a narration from Imam Hussein himself, alayhi salam. The Imam, he says that the people are the slaves of this dunya, and religion is just a movement on their tongue. And he says that as long as their lives are comfortable, they keep it, they keep this religion. But when the test comes, the religious, they become very few, very few. We see this on the day of Ashura, that in spite of many people saying, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, we find that very few join this grandson of the Holy Prophet. Very few. We have to work so that that becomes something in the heart, something that motivates, something that pushes us forward. In another narration, one day, the Holy Prophet, he tells the lady Fatima alayha salam, she tells him that one day your son, this son of yours, Hussein, is going to become shaheed. And the people of my community are going to kill him. Fatima, she begins to cry. She says that, Ya Abata, when is my son going to be martyred? When is this going to happen? The Holy Prophet replies, it is going to be when neither I, nor you, nor Ali is alive. This increases the grief of this great lady. And again, she asks, who then, O my father, is going to commemorate his shahada? Who is going to cry over him? Who is going to weep and mourn over him? The Holy Prophet, he says that there is going to be the men and women of a group of my followers. They will befriend my Ahlul Bayt, and they are going to mourn for Hussein, and they are going to commemorate his shahada every year in every century. This is one of the things that the Holy Prophet, he consoles his daughter Fatima with. In another narration from the etiquette of this month, it's been narrated that Imam Qadam alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It is narrated that for the first 10 days of Moharrum, he was never seen smiling. He wouldn't smile during these 10 days. And when the day of Ashura would arrive, that sadness, that grief would reach its peak. The day of Ashura was a day of complete mourning for Imam Qadam and indeed all of the Ahlul Bayt. Inshallah, may Allah make it a day of mourning and a day of growth for us as well. Inshallah, let us prepare ourselves for the recitation of the Maqtal. What happens to Imam Hussein on this day? If you don't mind, inshallah, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to face forward a little bit, and then we will begin the recitation of this Maqtal, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من شر الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. On the 10th day of Ashura, on the 10th of Muharram, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he begins by gathering his men. It is the time of Fajr, and they begin to pray Salatul Fajr together. It is going to be their last morning prayer together. The Imam, he begins to speak to his men. He says to them, Allah has permitted you to achieve the rank of martyrs today. Be ready to persevere and to fight. The Imam begins to prepare his men for battle. He organizes them into battalions. There was a left wing, there was a right wing, there was a center flank. He gives the standard of the army to his brother Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, because Abu al-Fadl was the bravest of the soldiers. In front of the Imam's army, there was Umar ibn Sa'd and his army of 30,000 men. Umar ibn Sa'd had organized his army into different flanks. The army of Umar ibn Sa'd, they marched forward to meet the army of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. At this time, the Imam, he raises his hands in prayer. He calls out, Ya Allah, you are my trust in every difficulty. You are my hope in every hardship. How many worries have you removed from me when I have placed my hope in you? At this point, Imam Hussein, he walks forward towards the Kufans. He takes his camel and he rides in front of the Kufans. Then he begins to speak to the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. He says, "O people, listen to my words and do not rush into this situation. Let me tell you why I have come here. O servants of Allah, fear Allah and be on your guard with regard to this life. Had this life remained for anyone at all, it would have remained for the Anbiya of God, for the prophets of God. But Allah has created this life so that it will perish. What is new soon grows old. Its pleasures diminish, its happiness soon leaves. A man's home is but a mound in the earth. So get ready and fear Allah so that you may be among the winners. O people, miserable is the one who gets infatuated by this dunya. Do not let this world deceive you. Do not let this life deceive you. It is a life that disappoints whoever trusts and desires it. I can see that you have set your minds on doing something which is going to cause the curse and wrath of Allah to descend upon you." The Imam, he continues, he says, "You declared obedience and believe in Muhammad the messenger, but then you organized yourselves to kill his progeny. Satan has taken full control over you and you have forgotten the remembrance of Allah. O people, identify me, find out who I am. Am I not the son of your prophet's daughter? Am I not the son of his cousin and successor? Am I not the son of the first of those who believed in Islam?" The Imam continues to speak. He's trying to explain to these people not to do what they are going to do. He shows them proof after proof. Suddenly, Shimr, he calls out, "We do not understand anything that you are saying." Habib ibn Mudahir, he yells, "I testify that you are being truthful, Ya Shimr. You do not understand anything that Abu Abdullah is saying. Allah has indeed sealed your heart." Imam Hussein, he continues, he says, "If you doubt what I have said, do you doubt that I am the son of your prophet's daughter? By Allah, there is no son of a prophet from the east to the west of this earth besides myself." He says, "Woe upon you, have I killed any of your men that you are seeking vengeance? Have I taken your wealth that you are seeking retribution?" The Imam then begins to call the Kufans who had sent him letters. He says, "Ya Qais ibn Ash'ath, Ya Zayd ibn Harith, Ya Shabath ibn Rabi, did you not write to me asking me to come and saying that you had troops ready to obey me?" The men call out, "No, we didn't do this." The Imam responds, "Yes, by Allah, you did exactly this." Here, the Imam, he stops speaking to Umar ibn Sa'ad's army and he dismounts from his camel. Zuhair ibn Qayn, he goes forward, he begins to speak in turn. He tells the army who Imam Hussein is. He mentions this is the grandson of the Rasul. He mentions the tyranny of Yazid and Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. He warns the people that if they fight against Imam Hussein, it is not long before the rulers will turn against them as well. At one point, Shimr, he shoots an arrow at Zuhair. He says, "Close your mouth, may Allah silence you. You are boring us with this talk." Zuhair, he responds to Shimr by saying, "O Shimr, prepare yourself for a painful punishment on the day of judgment. By Allah, Muhammad's intercession is never going to reach those who spill the blood of his offspring, the Ahlul Bayt." Imam Hussein, he praises Zuhair. He says, "Ya Zuhair, come back. You have done your duty and you have spoken most eloquently." More companions step forward. Everyone is trying to speak to this army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. Maybe they can reason with them. Maybe they can awaken their hearts. But it's as if they are speaking to stones. There is no response from this army. Their hearts have become harder than stones. Again, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he comes forward. He speaks to the people for the second time. He warns them of the repercussions of what they are about to do. He warns them of who Yazid is. He warns them of the day of judgment. None of it has any effect. The army is standing motionless in front of him. At this point, the Imam, he calls upon Umar ibn Sa'ad. He says, "Come, Umar, I want to speak with you." Umar ibn Sa'ad, he comes forward, but he can't look the Imam in the eyes. He can't meet the gaze of the Imam. He's looking down. The Imam asks him, "Are you really going to kill me so that Ibn Ziyad will make you the governor of Ray. By Allah, I will make you a certain promise that you will never enjoy the governorship of Ray. The Imam, he tells Umar ibn Sa'ad that it is as if I see your head mounted on a stick. Umar ibn Sa'ad, he becomes angry. He turns away from Imam Hussein and he leaves. In the midst of all of this, there is a man in the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad. He is listening to the words of the Imam. This is none other than Hur. Hur approaches Umar ibn Sa'ad. He says, are you really going to fight this man? Umar ibn Sa'ad replies, yes, I am going to fight, and it is going to be a fight in which heads will roll and hands will be cut off. Hur, he asks, what is your objection? Why don't you just leave him so that he goes somewhere other than Kufa? Umar ibn Sa'ad, he says, Ibn Ziyad refuses to accept. I don't have a choice. At this point, Umar ibn Sa'ad, he rides away. Hur is standing there. He doesn't know what to do. On one hand is the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, on the other is the army of Imam Hussein. It's narrated that Hur, he begins to slowly drift towards the army of Hussein. He's standing there in between these two armies, but his behavior is strange. One man comes up to him. Hur asks him, have you watered your horse? The man says, no. Hur says, go and water your horse. The man realizes that there is something wrong, so he leaves Hur. Another of the men from Umar ibn Sa'ad's army by the name of Muhajir, he sees Hur behaving in this strange way. He goes up to Hur and he says, are you trying to attack Hussein? Hur doesn't say anything, but his body is shivering, his body is shaking. Muhajir is surprised. He says to Hur, by Allah, I have never seen you in any war like this. If they asked me who was the bravest man of Kufa, I would certainly have mentioned your name. What is this state that I see you in right now? Hur says, truly, I see myself between paradise and hell. And by Allah, even if I have to get torn apart and burned, I cannot choose anything but paradise. Hur says this and he begins to ride towards the camp of Imam Hussein. He has made his decision. But how is he going to approach Abu Abdullah? With what face is he going to come and speak to Imam Hussein? How is the Imam going to forgive him for what he has done? He approaches the Imam riding his horse in a state of humility. Some say that he had taken off his shoes and he had hung the shoes around his neck. Others, they say that he was holding his shield upside down in a sign of surrender, a sign of seeking sanctuary. He goes up to the Imam, he's looking downwards. He cannot look at the Imam's face. He says, Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah. He gives his greeting to the Imam. Then he says, Ya Imam, I have come to you as a sinner. I have come to you as an individual whose heart is blackened. I am ashamed. I am that same person who was the first to block the path for you and your family. He asked the Imam, he says, Hal tara li min tawba ya ibn Rasulillah. He says, is there a way for me to be forgiven? Ya ibn Rasulillah. My brothers and sisters, look at what Hur has done. He is the one who set all of this in motion. He is the one who didn't allow Imam Hussein to leave that place. He is the one who put fear into the hearts of the women and children in the camp. He is the one that is at fault for what is now going to happen on the day of Ashura. Ibn Rasulullah, is there any way for God to forgive me for what I've done? Imam Hussein, he doesn't even hesitate. He says, of course, Ya Hur, you are already forgiven. My brothers and sisters, look at the generosity of the Imam. Look at the forgiveness of the Imam. He doesn't even say a word to Hur. He doesn't say to him, you scared my children. He doesn't say that you have caused us to be killed. He doesn't say a word. He accepts Hur and he brings him into his camp. My brothers and sisters, that door of Tawbah is always open to us. No matter what we have done, Allah is always waiting. He just wants us to do that Tawbah. Hur now, he begins to look at Imam Hussein. He says, oh my master, will you give me permission to go to the battlefield so that I can sacrifice myself in your path? The Imam looks at him. He says, Ya Hur, you are our guest. Come off of your horse and spend some time with us. Hur is given permission by the Imam. He heads off to the battlefield. He stands before the enemy and he begins to speak to them. He himself is from Kufa. He knows these people. He calls out to the crowd, what is the matter with you? You wrote letters to your Imam. You asked this man to come. You invited him to your homes. And now you have gathered ready to kill him. You have prohibited him, his women, his children, his companions from drinking the water of the Euphrates. But we see that the people drink freely, and even black dogs, black swine, they swim in this water. They drink freely from this water. Look and see how thirst has subdued them. Look at how thirst is bothering them, is tormenting them. Evil is the way that you are treating Muhammad's progeny. Or he continues to speak with the men. He continues to reason with the men until some time passes. And it's clear that these individuals are not going to listen. They begin to shoot arrows at Hur, and Hur is forced to return back to Imam Hussein. My brothers and sisters, the time for battle begins. The two sides go forward. Umar ibn Sa'd, he shoots an arrow towards Imam Hussein. And he says, let everyone be witness to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad that I was the first one to shoot the arrow. The army of Umar ibn Sa'd begins to shoot arrows all together. The battle begins between the two sides. The companions of Imam Hussein, they move forward and they begin to fight the soldiers of Umar ibn Sa'd. There is only 72 men, my brothers and sisters. They are facing 30,000 well-equipped soldiers. They fight bravely for a period of time until 50 of the companions of the Imam are martyred. They are killed. Eventually, the fighting becomes one-on-one combat. They begin to fight individually, and this was a custom of the Arabs of that time, that a man would go forward and he would call out for challengers. He would call out for people from the opposing army, and individuals would come and they would meet their challenge. They begin to kill a large number of Umar ibn Sa'd's army in this way. When Umar ibn Sa'd, he sees what is taking place, he orders his men. He says, tell the men that they are not allowed to accept any duel. These are men that we cannot meet in single combat. We can only kill them in group attacks. At this point, one of the companions of the Imam, by the name of Abdullah ibn Umar Kalbi, is cut down. He is killed. He had killed 19 horsemen and 12 foot soldiers before the enemy was able to kill him. When he was killed, his wife Wahab rushes towards his body. She is heartbroken. She is weeping. She is crying. She grabs onto the body of her husband and she says, congratulations for having earned paradise. She says, I beg Allah who has blessed you with paradise to make me join you. Shimr is nearby. When he hears these words of this woman, Wahab, he turns to his slave. He says, oh slave, oblige her. The slave goes forward. He strikes her on the head with a mace and he kills her instantly. Wahab becomes the first female martyr on the side of Imam Hussein. Shimr then, he sees an opportunity. He begins to attack the tent of Imam Hussein. The women are inside. He yells out loudly, give me a torch so I can burn the tent and everyone in it. The women inside, they begin to yell, they begin to cry. Imam Hussein calls out, Ya Shimr, are you calling for fire to burn my family? May Allah burn you with his fire. Shabat ibn Rabi yells out to Shimr, have you really sunk this low that you are now frightening women? I have never seen anyone doing something more shameful than you. Shimr, he feels a sense of shame in his black heart and he leaves the tent. The companions of the Imam, they attack him and they push him away from the tents. Soon, my brothers and sisters, the time of Salah has come. Imam Hussein, he prepares for the Dhuhr and Asr prayers. Imam Hussein, he loves the prayer. It is that which is the coolness of his eye. Two of the men, they come forward, they volunteer, they say, Ya Imam, they are shooting arrows at you. Let us stand in front of you and protect you while you are praying. Zuhair ibn Qa'in and Sa'id ibn Abdullah al-Hanafi, they stand in front of the Imam to protect him if anyone tries to attack or if anyone shoots any arrows at him. The Imam, he recites the Takbiratul Ihram, he begins to do the Salah. The enemy keeps shooting arrows at the Imam, but these two companions, they are blocking every single arrow that comes their way. By the time that the salah is finished, Sa'id had been hit by 13 arrows. He falls to the ground. He calls out to his imam. He says, Awfaytu ibn Rasulillah. He says, have I fulfilled my obligation towards you, Ya Imam? The imam, he looks at him. He says, yes, indeed, Ya Sa'id, and you will reach paradise before me. Then the imam, he turns to his companions. He says, O men of honor, here is paradise with its gates wide open for you, with its rivers joining one another, with its fruits ripened. Here is the messenger of Allah. Here are the martyrs who died alongside the messenger. They are all waiting for you to join them. The imam, he shows the position, the rank of each of the companions in paradise. They see where they are going to be in just a few moments. Then the imam, he continues, he says, all the shuhada, they are congratulating one another on your account. So defend the religion of Allah and His Prophet. Protect the women of the Messenger of Allah. They all say to him, may our lives be sacrificed for you. May our blood protect yours. By Allah, as long as blood flows in our veins, no harm is going to reach you or your women. At this time, the companions, they begin to move forward. Each one asks for permission from Imam Hussein, and then they would move towards the enemy and they would fight until they were killed. When they were killed, each one would call upon the Imam. The Imam would come, he would hold them, he would bid them farewell, and they would become shaheed. In this way, the Imam is watching all of this. He is seeing all of this. Loyal companion after loyal companion is becoming shaheed in front of his eyes. My brothers and sisters, imagine how the Imam feels at this time. How much this must hurt the Imam. Eventually, all of the companions are martyred in the path of Imam Hussein. The only people that are left are the family of Imam Hussein. And now it is time for the Banu Hashim to go. His beloved ones, his loved ones are going to have to go in front and fight and become shaheed. It's narrated that who is the first to go fight? It is narrated that the first to go fight is Ali Akbar. He is the first from the family of Imam Hussein. When he goes forward and he engages the enemy as he is fighting, he is sustaining wounds, he is being hurt. When the Imam sees him fighting, being surrounded by the enemy, he calls out, Ya Allah, I hold you witness against these people. A man has gone to fight them who is the most alike to your messenger Muhammad in his appearance, his manner, and his speech. The Imam begins to cry. He says, Ya Allah, whenever we loved to see your Prophet, we would look at the face of Ali Akbar. Whenever we like to be reminded of your Prophet, we would look at Ali Akbar, we would hear him speak. Ali Akbar, he fights ferociously. No one is able to stand against him. He continues to fight one enemy after the other. But eventually the thirst, the heat, it overcomes him. He needs just a little bit of water. His body is covered in wounds. The blood is flowing out of his body. He leaves the battlefield. He says that I want to speak to my father a little bit. He goes to Imam Hussein. He says, oh, my father, the thirst is killing me. The weight of this armor is killing me. Do you have just a little bit of water so I can drink and I can go back to the battlefield? The Imam, he shows him his own mouth. He shows him his own tongue. He says, my dear son, I am even thirstier than you are. How do we understand the thirst of the Imam? How do we understand the thirst of Ali Akbar? It's not possible to understand how difficult these moments were for these two. The Imam turns to his son. He says, oh, my son, take this ring of mine, put it in your mouth. It will, inshallah, help you. And then he says to his son, inshallah, you will soon meet your grandfather, and he is going to give a drink, after which you will never be thirsty ever again. Ali Akbar goes into the battlefield. He continues to fight, but his strength is becoming less and less. Eventually, an accursed man by the name of Murra ibn Munqid attacks him. He strikes him on the head. Ali Akbar is dazed. Others, they see their opportunity. They begin to surround him. They begin to attack him from all sides. They begin to strike him all over his body. Ali Akbar, he falls on the ground. These are his last moments. He calls out to his father. Imam Hussein rushes towards him. He is holding Ali Akbar in his lap. Ali Akbar says to his father, I see my grandfather Rasulullah, he has come and he is giving me this drink of water. My thirst is quenched, oh my father. And he says, Rasulullah is telling me to come. Ya Abata, oh my father. Imam Hussein is left holding the body of his Ali Akbar, this beloved son of his, this son that reminded him of Rasulullah. And he turns towards the enemy and he says, may God kill those who killed you, Ya Ali Akbar. This world is not living in after you, Ya Ali Akbar. At this point, Abdullah ibn Muslim, the son of Muslim ibn Aqil, he goes forward and he fights in defense of Imam Hussein until he is killed. More family members, they move forward, they fight in defense of the Imam until they too are killed. The three brothers of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, the sons of al-Banin, they go forward until each of them too is killed. Ya al-Banin, you only have one son left now on the plains of Karbala. At this point, only Abbas is left. Every single one of the companions has been killed. On the day of Ashura, it's been mentioned that eventually Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, the Alamdar, the standard bearer of the army of the Imam, he approaches his brother and he says, oh brother, I'm asking you for permission to fight. His brother says to him, Anta sahib liwa'i, you are my flag bearer, you are my alamdar. He says, Ya Sayyidi, there is no army left for me to be alamdar of. There is nobody left here. At this moment, the sounds of the crying of the children is heard. They are crying out, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. They are crying out, the thirst, the thirst, the thirst is killing us. You know, from a young age, one of the things which Abu al-Fadl Abbas was known for is that he could not bear to see people thirsty. It's been narrated that when he was young, he would carry around a water flask and he would give it to those that were thirsty in the desert. The Imam, he turns to Abbas, he says, my brother, you have my permission to go fight, but first go and see if you can get some water from the Furat. Abbas, he accepts, he gets on his horse. He begins to ride through the enemy. He's fighting them, killing them. No one can stand before him. And eventually he reaches the river Furat. It's narrated that he reaches the banks of the river. He steps off of his horse. He goes and he begins to fill his water skin. It is narrated that the enemy sees him. He takes a handful of the water. He hasn't drank anything for 3 days. The thirst is killing him. But then the enemy, they see that he pauses. He doesn't place his hand close to his mouth. We don't know what Abu al-Fadl is thinking, but we know what his father's last words were to him as Amir al-Mu'mineen was dying. When Amir al-Mu'mineen had been struck in the month of Ramadan, he was lying on his deathbed. He pulled his son Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas close to him. The same Abbas whose arms he would kiss over and over again when he was a child, and he would cry, he would weep. He pulls this son towards him and he hugs him and he says to him, oh my son, on the day of Ashura, you are going to do something that is going to make me proud. Ya Abbas, may you not drink any of the water of the Furat while your brother is still thirsty. Abu al-Fadl is dying of thirst, but he remembers these words. He pours the water back into the Furat. He doesn't take even a sip. He gets back on his horse and he can still hear the cries of the children ringing in his ears. He can feel the thirst of Imam Hussein. He can feel the thirst of the women in the camp. Abu al-Fadl Abbas, he begins to ride back through the enemy. The enemy is not able to face him man to man. One Mal'oon hides behind a tree. As Abu al-Fadl rides past, he strikes at him. He cuts off his right arm. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, he doesn't hesitate. He continues to ride. Another Mal'oon strikes him and cuts off his left arm. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas doesn't hesitate. He continues to ride forward. Suddenly an arrow comes, it strikes him in the eye. Blood begins to flow. He is not able to see. Another arrow comes, it strikes him in the chest. Another arrow comes, it strikes the water flask. All of the hopes of Abu al-Fadl disappears as the water begins to flow into the sands of Karbala. Who is going to give water to the children now, Ya Abu al-Fadl? The enemy surrounds him. One man strikes at him with a sword. Another man strikes him on the head with a mace. They attack him over and over like wild animals. As Abbas lays dying, he shouts out his final farewell. He cries out, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. He calls out to his brother. Imam Hussein rushes to his brother Abbas. This is the same brother who loved him so much that he would never call him by the name of Hussein. He would only call him by his titles. He would only say, Ya Sayyidi, or Ya Aba Abdullah, or Ya Ibn Rasulullah. He would never say, my brother. He reaches his brother, and it is here that Imam Hussein, he cries out, now my back has been broken. Now my back has been broken. Ya Imam, who is going to help you now? My brothers and sisters, the Imam, he leaves the body of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas right there where he had fallen. We don't know why he doesn't take his body back, but later, what we realize is that Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas requires a separate shrine. That when we go for ziyarah, we go and we visit our Imam, but it is also required that we visit Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas as well. This is the rank of this great man. Now the Imam is left all alone. There is no one to help him. There is no one to fight with him anymore. He goes back to the camp. He's weeping. He goes towards his family members. He's looking back at the bodies of the shuhada. Everyone has been killed. The children are thirsty. The women are afraid. He calls out, is there anyone who can help us? He calls out, is there anyone who can come to our aid? It's at this moment that Imam Sajjad, he suddenly comes out. He's so sick that he can barely stand. He is dragging himself. He is using his sword as a cane. He wants to help his father. He wants to fight against these oppressors. Imam Hussein calls to Kulthum. He says, take him back so that the line of Ali Muhammad is not broken. He is not to fight today. The Imam, he comes forward. He begins to give his final farewell. First, he asks for his old clothing. He says, bring me the old clothing, the torn clothing. They ask him why. He says that I don't want the people to plunder my clothing. I don't want them to steal my clothing. In spite of this, they still plunder his clothing after he has been killed. The Imam then begins to say his final farewell to his family members. He hugs them. He kisses them. He holds them close. And he knows that this is going to be the final time that he sees his family. This is going to be the final farewell. But at the time that they give him that young child, Ali Asghar, they give him that child so he can say his final farewell. The Imam, he looks at the child. He sees that the lips of the child are parched. The child is thirsty. The child is hungry. His mother has not been able to give him milk for some time. He sees that this child is suffering. Ali Asghar is suffering. Perhaps this enemy, as cruel as they are going to at least have a little bit of mercy in them. Maybe they are going to have a little bit of mercy on this small infant child. The Imam, he takes the child. He approaches the enemy army. He holds out the infant. He calls out, you have already killed all of my companions. You have already killed all of my family members. At least give this infant child a little bit of water. He is dying of thirst. He says, if you want to take him, give him water yourselves. Some of the enemy soldiers, they begin to call out, give the child some water. The child is innocent. Umar ibn Sa'ad, he sees that the men are beginning to argue. Their unity is beginning to fall apart. He becomes worried. He turns to Harmala. He says, Ya Harmala, do you not see what a perfect target that is? Harmala asks, should I shoot the father or the son? Umar ibn Sa'ad, he says, shoot the child. Quiet these men. Harmala, he draws back his bow. He selects a special arrow, a three-pronged arrow. He releases the arrow. The arrow begins to travel towards Ali Asghar. It hits Ali Asghar in the neck. Suddenly, Imam Hussein, he looks at his child. The infant child is moving this way and that way. The blood is flowing from his little neck. Imam Hussein, he begins to weep. He says, Ya Allah, judge between us and these people. He says, Ya Allah, what makes these hardships easy to bear is that I know all of this is happening in your presence. You see everything that is happening, Ya Allah. The Imam, he doesn't know what to do. Should he take the child back and give it to his mother? Does he bury the child here? What should the Imam do right now? He eventually goes and gives the child to Zainab. My brothers and sisters, at this point, imagine how the women feel. Imam Hussein is the last one left. He is their last protector. After he is killed, they are going to be taken as captives. They are going to be paraded from one city to another city. They are going to be beaten. Some amongst them are going to die from the torment, from the persecution. Imagine how the women must feel right now. At this time, Umar ibn Sa'ad, he sees an opportunity. He yells out to his men, Hussein is distracted. Attack the women, attack him while he doesn't see you. The army of Umar ibn Sa'ad begins to attack Imam Hussein while he is with the women. They shoot arrows at him. Some of the arrows goes through the clothing of the women. Imam Hussein, he runs forward. He attacks the soldiers like a lion. He kills anyone that is in his way. And in this fight, many arrows, they strike and they stick into his blessed body. After the fight, again, he comes back to camp. He is saying, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. He is saying that there is no power or potential except through God. He says these words over and over and over again. The Imam, again, he goes into the battlefield. He again begins to fight against the enemy. The Imam is becoming extremely weak. The Imam is being overcome with thirst. It is extreme at this point. Eventually, in the midst of the fighting, as he is killing the individuals, a cursed man by the name of Abu al-Hutuf Ju'fi shoots an arrow which strikes the forehead of the Imam. The Imam, he breaks off the arrow. He pulls out the arrow. Blood begins to pour from the wound. The Imam, he calls upon Allah. He says, Ya Allah, you see what condition I am in. Look at what these people are doing, what these sinners are doing. He says, Ya Allah, decrease their numbers and leave none of them on the face of this earth. Do not ever forgive them for what they are doing. The Imam continues to fight. Fight after fight, battle after battle. Eventually, the Imam, he pauses to rest. He is looking at his companions. Their bodies are lying all on the ground. He is looking at his relatives, his children. All of their bodies are lying on the ground. Suddenly, as he is in that state of resting, one of the enemies throws a stone at the Imam. The stone strikes the Imam on the head. Blood begins to flow down his face. The Imam, he tries to wipe some of the blood off, but at that moment, a man shoots a three-pronged arrow at him. The arrow strikes the Imam in the chest. The Imam, he raises his head, he looks at the sky, he says, Ya Allah, you know that they are killing a man who is the son of your Prophet's daughter. The Imam, he pushes the arrow out through his back. When he pushes the arrow out through his back, blood begins to flow. The Imam, he falls on the ground. He does not have the strength to stand any longer. The enemy surrounds him. At this time, Abdullah, the son of Imam Hassan, a young child, he was only 11 years old. He sees these enemies surrounding his uncle. He runs out. One of the women tries to stop him. She's not able to stop him. He rushes out in front of the enemy. He yells out and he says, "Oh, son of the corrupt woman, are you really going to strike my uncle?" The man has no mercy. He strikes at Abdullah, this young 11-year-old boy. He cuts off the hand of Abdullah. The child begins to cry. The child yells out, "Oh, my uncle. Oh, my uncle." Imam Hussein, he's lying down. He pulls the child close to him. He says, "Oh, my nephew, be patient, be patient. Soon you are going to see the ones that you love." The Imam, he raises his hand in dua. He says, "Ya Allah, let them enjoy themselves for some time and then divide them into parties. And do not ever allow the rulers to be pleased with them." As Harmala is watching this, he suddenly takes one of his arrows and he shoots an arrow into that young child's chest, killing him instantly. The Imam is still on the ground. He's remaining on the ground. Everyone is afraid of approaching him. They are hoping that someone else will kill the Imam. In that state, the Imam begins to do dua. What a beautiful dua. He turns his attention towards Allah. He raises his hands to the heavens and he begins to say, "Ya Allah, O great of might, O omnipotent, O independent of all creation, O capable of doing whatever you please, O forthcoming in mercy, the one who is true of promise." And he continues to do dua for a period of time, speaking with his Lord and doing dua, asking Allah for his favors and his mercy. Suddenly the horse of the Imam comes. The horse of the Imam comes and it begins to rub its head on the blood of the Imam. It begins to smell the Imam. It too knows that this is going to be the final farewell. Umar ibn Sa'ad's men, they see the horse. They say, "This is the horse of the Prophet of God." But the horse will not allow any of them to catch him. It kills a number of them before Umar ibn Sa'ad, he says, "Leave the horse. Leave the horse alone." The horse then leaves the Imam and it goes back to the camp. When the women, they see the horse without a rider, they see the horse covered in blood, they begin to weep, they begin to cry. They come out of their tents, they can see the Imam is lying there on the plains of Karbala. They see the men surrounding the Imam. Zainab cries out, "O Umar ibn Sa'ad, should Abu Abdullah be killed as you are watching?" Umar ibn Sa'ad, he looks away. Tears are streaming down his face. Zainab cries out, "Woe upon you, is there not any Muslim amongst you?" Eventually, Umar ibn Sa'ad, he looks at Imam Hussein on the ground and he calls out to his men, "Enough of this, kill him." Shimr approaches the Imam. Shimr approaches the Imam. He first begins by kicking Imam Hussein with his foot. He then goes forward and he is sitting on the chest of the Imam. He takes hold of the Imam's beard. He begins to stab the Imam in the neck. Not once, not twice, not 3 times. He strikes the Imam 12 times in the neck. He severes the head of the Imam. He is cutting the Imam's head. The women are all crying loudly. No one is left. Everyone has been killed. Ya Abu Abdullah, nobody has been left. Ya Abu Abdullah, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah wa ala al-arwah allati حلت بفنائك عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار صلوا على محمد وآل محمد وجل فرجهم يا حسين.
गूंजी बवक्त अस्र ये सदा, मैं हुसैन हूँ। गूंजी बवक्त अस्र ये सदा, मैं हुसैन हूँ। गूंजी बवक्त